Hello, Wheel of Time community, and welcome to the Wheel of Time Pod-Thru. I'm Teresa.
And I'm Tim.
And together, we're going to walk through Robert Jordan's Wheel of Time book series. How you doing, Tim?
Doing okay. It's hot today, but...
It is hot.
I'm totally ready to do this episode, though.
Cool. All right. Before we get started, we just want to remind you that this is a reread. We assume that you've read the entire series, so there will be spoilers. You have been warned. All right, Tim, what are we going to be doing in today's episode?
Today, we'll be discussing chapters 36 and 37 of The Great Hunt, where we find way more about Machin Shin than we wanted to know, and then flicker. Chapter 36 is called Among the Elders, and the icon is the Avendasora leaf.
Here's a quick summary to act as a reminder for those of you who are not reading along with us. Juin leads the group to meet the elders, but Loyal's anxiety is dialed up to 11, so he opts to wait outside for them with a book instead. The 7 elders of Stedding Sofu are an impressive lot, and no one knows quite how to act. Alar, the eldest, tells them that Varen explained their request to travel the ways and the motivation behind it. They have not allowed anyone to enter a waygate in over 100 years, and before they will consider deviating from that, she wants to make sure that they are aware of the risks. Rand says that they've seen Machin Shin, and Matt and Perrin are quick to agree. Ingtar says that he would follow the horn to Shale Ghul if he has to, and Huron echoes the sentiment. Alara tells them that it is not enough to merely hear what can happen. They have to see what Machin Shin can do. She orders Trail brought before them. 2 Ogier women guide a middle-aged Ogier, and it is immediately obvious that he is very much not okay. Alar explains that Trail was one of the last to travel the ways, and he came out in this vacant state. She asks Varen to touch him, and when she lays her hands on him, Varen freaks out. She says that he's empty. There's nothing left inside. Machin Shin hollowed him out, and everything that was Trail is gone. The women take Trail away, and Varen says that they are aware of the risks, but that they have to follow the horn. The elders agreed to grant permission to use the ways. Alar brings up Loyal, and Rand is quick to say that they need him to go along. Matt and Perrin stammer their agreements, but they back him up. Varen says that they need a guide to get through the ways, and Loyal has studied them. Alar focuses on Rand, telling him that she can tell that he is strongly Tevered, and asks if he has tangled Loyal up in his wacky weave pulling. Rand responds that he's just trying to find the horn and that Loyal is his friend. Alar considers this and tasks Rand to look after Loyal, and when the weaving is done, to see him safely back home. Rand promises to do so and recognizes the commitment he has just sworn to. Alar leads them to the waygate, picking up Loyal on the way. He asks how it went and if the elders said anything about him, and Rand tells him that they said he could come along. He notices that Loyal has a flower in his hand and asks about it. Loyal tells Rand that Aerith gave him the flower, and he presses it into one of his books. He muses about how pretty she is, and she said Loyal was handsome too. Matt starts to give Loyal a hard time, but Perrin smacks him and says that he's just jealous because no one ever called him handsome. They tease each other as they make their way out of the steading. When they leave the boundary of the steading, Rand can feel Sidin return. Uno and the other soldiers join them, and Varen tries to open the waygate. As soon as it starts to crack open, Rand sees the vile blackness of Machin Shin and yells for her to close it again. Both Varen and Alar are confounded because Machin Shin has never laid in waiting for a waygate to open before. Things are changing, and Varen fears that no matter what waygate they go to, they will find the same problem. They debate about how best to get to Toman Head, and Huron suggests they use a portal stone again, since it worked so well the last time. Alar tells them that there is a stone nearby, and Varen asks that she take them to it, because they can't afford to lose any more time.
Rand starts this chapter off right by sticking up for Loyal. He knows the Loyal does not want to face the elders, because they will send him back home to his homesteading.
Mm-hmm.
And the way Rand does this is very lord-like. He does not command Loyal, but rather recommends that he waits outside. And when Juin tries to say something about the elders, Rand just cuts him off and runs over his words with a very authoritative way.
Mm-hmm.
He's not rude, but he is taking charge.
Yeah.
Loyal is caught between a rock and a hard place. If he goes in to face the elders, he will probably be sent home. Mm-hmm. But if he stays outside, he's basically being put on display for all the women to check out.
Yeah.
So he opts for being able to stay on the journey with his friends and escape the onlookers by reading. Good choice, in my opinion, but I do think reading a book that small makes him look adorable and possibly more interesting to the women watching him.
Totally.
There is something about some people who live to be really old that just radiates wisdom.
Mm-hmm.
I think of people like Maya Angelou or the Dalai Lama or Mother Teresa, and how every person who ever spent time near them always talks about how they just emanate strength and knowledge that was a level higher than the rest of all of us.
Mm-hmm.
I get that sense here as we see our group approach the elders. These Ogier have seen things and know stuff. I love the way that this is set up and really wish we had a chance to spend more time among the Ogier in the series.
Me too. Yeah. The Ogier haven't let anyone use the ways in over a century. And before they let our group go in, they have to make sure that they understand the risks. Alar tells them that it is not enough to hear what can happen. You must see it, know it in your heart. And she orders trail brought before them. And the effect of Machin Shin is horrifying.
Yeah, it really is.
So here's what it says. There was an uncomfortable silence until Juin returned, and it became more uncomfortable still as two Ogier women followed him, guiding a dark-bearded Ogier of middle years who shambled between them as if he did not quite know how his legs worked. His face sagged without any expression at all, and his big eyes were vacant and unblinking, not staring, not looking, not even seeming to see. One of the women gently wiped drool from the corner of his mouth. They took his arms to stop him. His foot went forward, hesitated, then fell back with a thump. He seemed as content to stand as to walk, or at least as uncaring. Trail was one of the last among us to go along the ways, Alar said softly. He came out as you see him. Will you touch him, Varen? Varen gave her a long look, then rose and strode to Trail. He did not move as she laid her hands on his wide chest, not even a flicker of an eye to acknowledge her touch. With a sharp hiss, she jerked back, staring up at him, then whirled to face the elders. He is empty. His body lives, but there is nothing inside it. Nothing. Every elder wore a look of unbearable sadness. Nothing, one of the elders to Alar's right said softly. Her eyes seemed to hold all the pain Trails no longer could. No mind, no soul. Nothing of Trail remains but his body. He was a fine tree singer, one of the men sighed. Alar motioned, and the two women turned Trail to lead him out. They had to move him before he began to walk. Oh, that's bad. It's so heartbreaking.
It really is. I'm not sure how I feel about this.
Okay.
On the one hand, Jordan makes it very clear that Trail is gone. Mm-hmm. But on the other hand, parading the invalid out as a warning to others just doesn't sit very well with me. Mm-hmm. I kind of feel that carting him out as a freak show is demeaning. That having been said, it's 100% effective as a writing device. There is no way I'm going back in the ways after seeing this.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I see what you're saying, but I don't know that I agree. Okay. Simply because it's so clear that there is nothing left of Trail. If he had any sense of self left, then yes, it would be totally wrong. But I don't think he has any sentience anymore. The sanctity of his body should be kept. Mm-hmm. And the Ogier are right not to just let the body waste away because we don't know how much it's aware of pain. True. Or how much it can suffer.
That's true.
So it's right to maintain the body and care for it as long as it lives, but it's no longer Trail. I don't think they could have really understood the danger without seeing him, you know? Like,
yeah.
Alar says it's not enough to just hear it. You have to see it. You have to know it in your heart.
Right.
And there's no way that they're ever going to forget this. You know, so I don't know. Like, I guess I just don't see it as problematic because there's no shame or humiliation. Trail isn't there anymore.
Right.
You know, like this is just an empty shell.
And maybe what's actually driving this is more just we, at least in Western society, we don't handle very well, like sociologically, people who are invalid, like people who are disabled.
Yeah.
So maybe that's why I feel
it's
so
getting
uncomfortable.
better, but we're really old.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. That's very true.
So I think our generation is sort of the last generation where people with severe disabilities or people who, or like the very elderly who are invalid, were sort of hidden away.
Yeah.
And they were kind of invisible members of society. We didn't talk about them. And when we were kids, they started to put people who had disabilities, people who were in wheelchairs or people who had Down syndrome in television shows to get people more accustomed to seeing them and not being uncomfortable around them. That started when we were younger, but we weren't raised in the same like openness.
Yeah. And I think
we were still raised to see them as other. So I think it's been really difficult to overcome that. So there's probably still that sort of instinctual, don't make eye contact, look away, because you don't want to stare. Like we were taught not to stare.
Exactly.
But unfortunately, I think we overcorrected.
Which means we don't
now we're just
acknowledge.
making them completely invisible. Yeah, and that's also terrible.
Yeah, I think as I heard you talking, I think I just realized that we're also the first generation that had, in public schools, we had special education classes mixed in with normal classes.
Yeah, see, I didn't have that because I went to private school. We
Yeah.
didn't have any special ed classes. So all of our students had to be able-bodied.
Right.
Like, we didn't even have ramps to get to the second floor. Like, we had two-story buildings, and we absolutely had classes upstairs. Lockers were upstairs. So if you were in a wheelchair, you were screwed. Like, we just didn't have an accessible school because it was a private school, so we didn't have to.
Yeah, and I think it's while we were actually in high school, they passed the legislation that made all that stuff. You had to make everything accessible.
Yeah,
So
certainly for public schools.
So we are taking steps forward, yay. But
yeah, I mean, it's wonderful that it's changing, and being old is not an excuse.
No.
Like, just because we were raised a certain way does not mean it's okay for us to treat people with disabilities differently or treat, someone who is invalid differently. It just means that we have to overcome that inherent uncomfortableness that we were kind of raised with.
Yeah. When Alar brings up Loyal, we get this moment where Rand rushes to plead the case to keep him. And then Matt and Perrin talk over each other to add their 2 cents as well. I find it interesting that Rand's justification is, we need him. Perrin's is Loyal as a friend. And Matt's is just that Loyal is not a nuisance and pulls his own weight. Rand is the one who actually does need Loyal for his services. Neither Matt nor Perrin express a need for him. Though, as it turns out, Perrin really did need him in a minute there in the Dragon Reborn.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
So when Alara recognizes that Rand is really a strong Tavaran, and this is the reason that the pattern is pulling Loyal into the group, she charges Rand specifically with making sure Loyal returns to staying Tai when they're all done. This is Rand's weaving of the pattern, so Loyal's safety is his responsibility.
Yeah, definitely. And honestly, Rand falls down on the job.
Right?
Like he says here that he had the feeling of a commitment or the swearing of an oath. So he feels the weight of his promise, but Rand doesn't keep tabs on Loyal, He uses Loyal as a weapon and sends him out on a dangerous secret mission. Loyal could have been killed 10 ways from Sunday, but Rand is too busy with other things to notice. Now, granted, they're important things. He's got an apocalypse to deal with.
True.
But
True.
He does a disservice to Loyal, Like, I feel like Rand is kind of a crappy friend. I mean, he gets to play the apocalypse card, but still.
Yeah, Perrin's a much better friend to Loyal than Rand ever was.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
For sure.
But I do like that Loyal puts the flower that Aerith gives him in his book.
It's cute.
Like, we know that the closest thing to Loyal's heart at this point in the story are his books. So this says something that at least how he feels about this particular gift.
You're right. I didn't think about that. I mean, I just assumed he presses the flower in his book because that's how you press flowers.
Yeah.
But you're right. His books are precious to him. So putting the flower in the book means the flower is precious.
Yeah.
I like that.
He carries a bit of her close to his heart
I
for
like
the rest
that
of the story.
a lot.
Yeah.
Aw.
Yeah. I love Perrin in these last couple of chapters. He's a lot less broody. And when Matt says something insensitive or insulting, Perrin punches him or hits him on the back of the head. And I love when he puts Matt in his place for teasing Loyal with this line, "No one ever said Matt was handsome. He's just jealous."
Yeah.
It's great. It's awesome.
It's nice to get the banter and ribbing back for a minute. Mm-hmm. You know, we lost the fun of old friends goofing on each other in this book.
Yeah.
With all the drama-rama and crap that Rand was, pulling. So it's refreshing to see it back, even if it is short-lived.
Yeah. I just want to take a moment and admire the skill of Ogier craftsmanship. Like the stone barrier that they erected around the Waygate looks just like all kinds of bushes and weeds that you never want to get near. So basically, it looks like a hedge made of briar patch and poison oak. But it's stone. And that's just really, really cool that it looks so lifelike, but it's actually stone.
Yeah, that is really cool. So this Waygate is also being guarded by Machin Shin, and all Rand wants to do is tell Varen, "I told you so." Like, she responds automatically with what she, quote unquote, knows to be true.
Right.
But then she starts musing because Machin Shin is obviously acting strangely, and she's trying to puzzle out what it means without giving too much away.
Yeah.
She's pretty sure it's connected to Rand, so no matter what Waygate they try, they'll have the same issue. So just a refresher on why the ways are all wacky.
Right.
The ways are made by male channelers after the breaking, so Sidin was already corrupted by the taint. Over time, the corruption of the Dark One's touch spread and started to distort the ways, and that's what created Machin Shin.
Right.
So when Fane entered in Book 1, he'd already been marked by the Dark One as his hound. So the part of Fane that was touched by the Dark One and the part of the Dark One's essence that's in Machin Shin recognized each other.
Yeah.
And you add in Mordith's power, and instead of Machin Shin taking over Fane or hollowing him out like it does with, Trail and other people,
right,
they merged and influenced each other. So Machin Shin took over some of Fane's obsession with Rand. So that's why it can sense when Rand is near a Waygate and is waiting for him, trying to get to him.
Yeah.
So other people who are not with Rand can use the Waygates, but Rand can't, ever.
So I guess if we just keep Rand near a Waygate at all times, anyone else can use it. We're good.
True.
Yeah.
I mean, they'd have to use a different Waygate.
Right, they'd have to use a different Waygate, but we can use Rand as a blocker, so to speak.
So Machin Shin's just focusing like where Rand is, and everyone else is totally free.
Yep.
Like, no more problems.
Sounds good to me.
Rand, you just have to stand here for the rest of forever. Thank you. I'll bring you a snack.
Yay. Just when hope is lost, they can't travel the Waygates anymore, Huron is all like, if we only had a portal stone. Because messing with things from the Age of Legends always worked out so well.
Yeah.
As much as I complain about Matt being a complete jackass,
and he is,
Rand really is afraid for his friend's life. He's literally watching his friend die a little more every day. And it's his friendship for Matt that gives him the courage to say that he can find the nearest portal stone, knowing that this means he'll have to channel at least 2 more times if they go this route. He knows with each touching he gets closer to madness, the madness that comes with the taint of the power, and his resolve to save Matt in spite of it.
Yeah.
Rand can be a really good friend, when he's not a crappy one.
Yeah, okay.
And wouldn't you know, there just happens to be a portal stone nearby.
Well, look at that.
Looks like things are starting to look up. Should be downhill from here, right?
Yeah.
And that wraps up chapters 36. But before we get to chapter 37, here's a quick word from our sponsors.
Today's episode of the Wheel of Time Pod-Thru is brought to you by Tavern Travel Agency. We don't just take you where you want to go, we take you all the places you could have gone as well. Side effects may include disorientation, flicker, fear, flicker, hallucination, flicker, vomiting, flicker, uncontrolled screaming, flicker, and occasional loss of balance and or the will to live. Tavern Travel Agency, you won't soon forget this journey.
Chapter 37 is called What Might Be, and the icon is the portal stone.
This is a tough chapter to summarize, so you should just go read it for yourself, but I'll hit the highlights. Alar leads them to the portal stone, and Varen bids the Ogier a hasty goodbye. Ingtar is still wishy-washy about whether or not they should even go to Toman Head at all, but Varen shuts that down pretty quickly and asks Rand to join her by the stone. He hopes that she'll be doing the channeling, but Varen tells him that she isn't strong enough, so he'll have to do it. She gives him a quick rundown of what she knows about how the stones work while he struggles with his fear about channeling. She is not comforting and basically freaks Rand out by telling him that he could easily kill them all and it's basically a crapshoot if they get out of this alive. But she's banking on the pattern not letting the Dragon Reborn die until the last battle, so she's willing to toss the dice. Varen calls everyone to gather closely around the stone and places her hand on the stone to help protect Rand's secret. Rand touches the source and channels into one of the symbols that Varen showed him, but something goes wrong. The group flickers through several of their possible lives, and it is disorienting and painful. The power floods through Rand, and as he dies over and over again, he hears a voice say, "I have won again, Luce Theron," before the next life flickers. He died sick and mad, or killed by Trollocs, or of old age after a long life. He marries Egwene, or other women, or not at all. He was a soldier, a shepherd, a king. Hundreds of lives flickering at him one after another as the power raged through him. Eventually, the void vanishes and they all thud into the ground. Everyone is down, and they are all shaken, some more than others. Ingtar had his sword out, gripping the hilt so hard the blade shook, staring at nothing. Loyal sat sprawled, wide-eyed and stunned. Matt was huddled in a ball with his arms wrapped around his head, and Perrin had his fingers dug into his face as if he wanted to rip away whatever he had seen, or perhaps rip out the eyes that had seen it. None of the soldiers were any better. Massima wept openly, tears streaming down his face, and Huron was looking around as if for a place to run. Varen chastises Rand for not letting her try to guide him, and tells him that he did bring them to Toman Head, but they lost about 4 months in the process. She goes to each person to offer healing. They're all in bad shape. When she gets to Rand, he rebuffs the offer, saying he doesn't want help from any Aes Sedai. Varen lets it go, and they all ride west, away from the portal stone.
I just want to take a second to shed some light on how the portal stones may work.
Okay.
Robert Jordan had a degree in physics and worked as a nuclear power engineer after he finished his military service.
He did?
He did.
Wow.
Yeah. Thank you, Wikipedia. So when it comes to science, he knew a thing or two about theoretical physics. The reason that Alar says it seemed to resist being moved when they were talking about moving the portal stone could be because this stone exists in a weird state of flux between dimensions. Mm-hmm. It is both here in this world and also in a lot of other worlds at the same time. So in order to move it, you have to move it in all possible worlds that it's connected to, which would take a tremendous amount of energy if the attempt was only being done in one of those worlds. The reason I want to bring this up is that this blend of science fiction and high fantasy really does not occur in any of their book series that I've read, at least that was published prior to The Wheel of Time. Mm-hmm. And it's a really subtle science tie-in, but the reason that this series is considered to have a hard magic system is because Jordan grounded a lot of the rules in real scientific constructs, like conservation of energy and multidimensional universe, long before other series started combining magic and technology together. These days, we turn on the TV and we see shows where things like a multiverse or time travel are just really commonplace. But what happens in this chapter is one of the first times that I've ever experienced an author explore those ideas in a high fantasy setting. Mm-hmm. And while the experience is really unnerving and traumatic on the characters, it was very unique and ahead of its time in 1991.
Yeah, you kind of lost me at theoretical physics, but cool.
Sorry. Yeah, I'm
no,
a bit
I
of a
mean
geek.
that's good.
Yeah. So when Alar lists the important events that have happened in the world that just passed them by, and it makes me flash forward to when Loyal addresses the stump. We don't get a lot of time with Ogier, but from statements like this, I kind of get the sense that the Ogier have grown accustomed to a passive existence in the world. Yes, hard times will come, but they will live through it. They've survived one breaking of the world. What can't they survive? When Alaire says, I do not think Taramon Gaiden will pass us by or leave us in peace, it leaves me with the impression that the Ogier are used to simply rolling with the punches at this point. And this is the thing that Loyal will have to combat later when he appeals to the elders of the Great Stump to get involved and take action to prevent the Dark One from winning the last battle. He will have to convince people who have always just let fate run its course that they have to participate in the world in order to save it. Which, we don't really get much about the Ogier, but it was interesting that kind of hit me this time around.
Yeah. I mean, it's very Lord of the Rings.
A little bit, yeah. Like the elves are just kind of like, peace out.
Well, both the elves and the Ents. That's the tree people, right?
The Ents just kind of
it's sort of like a combination of the Ents being like, it's not a problem, and the elves being like, it's time to peace out, yo. You know?
Yeah.
But, So, we've already discussed that Varen is not the most comforting or reassuring person ever. Like, she has a way of being a little too blunt or too informative that usually scares the hell out of whoever she's talking to. So here, she asks if Rand is a betting man because she doesn't know anything about the worlds related to the symbols she recognizes.
Yeah.
And there's a very good chance that Rand will kill them all. Which, of course, makes him freak out because, duh. You know, like he's trying so hard to save Matt and also to get the horn back. And now everyone's lives are in his hands. Like it's a lot to take in.
It really is. Varen...
I love her.
Oy. Well, she says something here that it takes books for Rand to catch on to. In fact, all three of the Two River Boys figure this out in their own way, but Rand, I think, is the last to get it.
Okay.
She says, oh, you can die, but I don't think the pattern will let you die until it's done with you. Once Rand starts to figure out how to make being Ta'veren work for him, life really does get a little bit better.
Yeah. I appreciate that Varen is going through the motions to keep up the charade that she's the one who's going to be channeling.
Yeah, huh?
Every time Rand denies being the dragon, she calls him out and tells him that he can't escape his destiny or that he is who he is. But she's still protecting his secret and not outing him because Varen is awesome.
Yeah. It's not good to out people.
It's not. It's not. And, you know, Rand will get there eventually, but I think it's really cool that she gives him the space, even though she thinks he's being a fool.
Yes.
That she gives him the space to, like, respect his secret and figure it'll get there. I mean, he's the freaking dragon. It's going to have to.
There's this prophecy that says it's gone. So,
like, that's why she thinks he's a fool, because it's like, obviously this is going to come out, dude. Like, calm down. But she is just being kind by not forcing the issue, you know?
True. Or manipulative, depending on how you look at it. But I like to prefer
I don't think she's manipulating him. I think she's just being kind by being like, okay, I'll go through the motions. I'll let everybody think it's me. Time's a ticking, man. Like, let's get this going.
Yeah.
Can you just be the dragon already? Thanks.
Put that on a t-shirt.
Right?
Begin the flicker section of this chapter. Yeah. Okay, so the first time I read through this, it was really jarring.
Yeah.
Like, we flash back to a scene from The Eye of the World where the Trollocs attack the farm, but it plays out in a different way. I was not expecting a flashback, let alone an alternate reality flashback. By the time I got through the second flicker, it made more sense. But this section just took some adjusting to.
Yeah.
After each life, we get the refrain, I've won again, Luz Theron. And I'm torn about how this was written because, on the one hand, it was confusing to read. On the other hand, it kind of helps you experience a little of what Rand is going through. Like, do you think this was good writing or that Jordan went off the rails a little here?
I guess a little of both.
Okay.
Okay, so this is beautifully written, but I don't love the flicker scene. Like, in a way, it's kind of like Rand's version of the accepted test, living out other realities, but I mean, in a completely uncontrolled and savage way.
Right.
And I think it is important to read at least once because it shows us what can happen to a man that can channel and what Rand is so afraid of. Like the wasting sickness and basically rotting, like while you're still alive, your body rotting and the violent moods and all that kind of stuff. And it's also important for Rand to see that he can't escape his destiny.
True.
You know, even if Moraine hadn't come to the Two Rivers to get him, he would always have been able to channel, and he would have always been the Dragon Reborn.
Yeah.
So the only difference is that in this reality, he actually has the chance to save the world instead of letting it be overrun. So there's that. But no, the multiverse aspect of The Great Hunt has never been my favorite thing. And I'm glad that we abandoned the portal stones in favor of traveling because I don't love it, you know?
Yeah, it's always... traveling is just so much more effective.
Oh my gosh, yes.
Point A, point B, done.
Yeah. Because all of this experiencing alternate reality stuff ultimately doesn't matter because they're ultimate realities.
Right.
Not ultimate, what am I saying? They're alternate realities, like, it doesn't affect this world. Also, science fiction is not in my wheelhouse. So I don't know if this question is going to make sense.
Okay.
But, like, time is a wheel, right? A continuous wheel that just repeats itself. So if time is a wheel, how are there alternate realities in the first place? Like, does that mean there's multiple wheels? Like,
yes.
Or is it the same wheel? And, like, if Rand keeps losing, if the Dark One keeps winning in these alternate realities, then... shouldn't that break all the wheels, or is there a different Dark One in each reality? Like, I don't understand how this science is out. Like, it seems confusing, and it shouldn't make sense.
My very short answer to that complicated question is that there is a lot of information on the web where people have asked this question and parsed out this question and gone all over the place on it.
Oh, have they? Oh, of course they have. That makes sense.
No, this is a very valid question to be asking because that's true. Like and this is an existential question that even in our own world, like if there's a multiverse, what does that actually mean? Does this actually mean anything? And does that have any bearing on us at all? Mm-hmm. And my response to that is, yeah, it does, because the whole point of Rand going through these alternate realities is that these are all the possible ways that things can go wrong. And I kind of side on the argument that some people make that this is the one reality in which the Dark One does not win.
It's like a Doctor Strange, Tony Stark. There's just one.
Correct.
Thing.
Just one. And because there's just one, it means that the Dark One may have won in all the other realities. But we have one shot.
The Dark One winning meant that time itself was going to unravel. Like the Dark One winning in this story is not that he's going to rule the world and Trollocs everywhere. Like, if the Dark One wins, he's destroying the pattern completely, and time will cease to exist. That's why Ishmael is so like, yay, Dark One, because he wants it to stop. So if the Dark One wins in all these other realities, then time should cease to exist.
Right. Now we're about to launch into a commentary on Avengers Endgame.
No, but like those are the rules that Jordan set up.
It's true.
Those are the rules, and he can't just break them because multiverses are cool. You know, like.
And I honestly think that's why we got away from Portal Stones and got away from a lot of that later on.
Because he realized that he couldn't go down that road without breaking his own rules.
Yeah,
actually makes sense.
It gets really, really complicated once you bring in a multiverse.
Yeah.
But from my own personal opinion is that if they lose in this world, if they lose to Dark One, the reason all of Time and Fabric will unwind is because it's the last remaining one.
Oh.
Yeah. So that's kind of what my opinion is.
Okay.
So when they go to the other portal worlds, they're always something tainted by the Dark One. They're always won by the Dark One. There's always something where like the forces of the dark are in control or have wiped out the entire world and nothing lives. That's why, because they lost the battle on that one. This is the one remaining world that keeps the entire wheel going.
You know, I don't know if that's accurate, but I like it. So I'm putting my stamp of approval on it. I like that explanation.
Okay.
So, okay, that works for me. I accept it.
It's really unsettling that Viren is screaming with each transition between flickers.
Yeah.
I think it's even more scary now than when I read it the first time, because this is the only time in the series that we see her afraid. She is never unhinged like she is here. And that just really freaks me out.
Yeah, totally.
You can plainly see that every person that was transported with them was affected by the same kind of reliving of their alternate lives as Rand was. It's so bad that Uno does not even have the will to curse.
Oh, no.
And I really wonder what Varen saw.
Yeah.
Like,
yeah.
Do you think that the comment she makes when she gets out means that she went full Dark Sister?
I do, actually. I mean, if we're just spinning possibilities, what would be really cool is if Varen became Amerlin Seat as a Dark Sister and, like, turned the whole tower into, like, the Black Aj.
Wow.
Aja. Like, that would be super cool. Like, I mean, if we're really going to go to alternate possibilities,
Yeah.
like, I think Varen destroyed the world with her power.
Huh.
I mean, probably
I hadn't
not,
even
but,
thought of that.
But yeah, I think she did some horrible things, is basically, yeah. Yeah, because, I mean, we know that she only joined the Black Aja because it was that or die.
Right.
And she was like, well, I can work from the inside and, like, discover everything and root it all out. But, I mean, I'm sure that there are other possibilities where she joined just because.
Right.
Or maybe she joined for the same reason, but she made different choices and she ended up believing them. You know, like she was surrounded by Dark Sisters and was like, hey, you know, this actually kind of works for me. And so, yeah, I mean, I definitely think that she lived some lives where she was full on Black Aja and doing some terrible, terrible things.
Now I'm really afraid. Wow.
I mean, personal headcanon, she was the dark Amerlin Seed and she brought the tower down.
Wow.
She's a new Forsaken.
There you go.
You know, like because they're gonna be making new ones or something, right?
Well,
that was part of the promise.
Yep.
That they were going to be making new ones. So she's a new Forsaken, and she was like the worst of all of them, with this little plump gray hair, horrible Forsaken, with her nose in a book, because
Taking
knowledge
notes.
is power.
Oh, this went a real dark place.
This
wow.
went way off the rails, but I am for it.
Oh.
Anyway. So Varen chastises Rand, saying, you must let me guide you in these things. I cannot teach you, it's true, but perhaps I can at least keep you from killing yourself and the rest of us by overreaching. Even if you do not kill yourself, if the Dragon Reborn burns himself out like a guttering candle, who will face the Dark One then? Okay, but how, though? I mean, she was just standing there, like, waiting for him to channel. She didn't give him any specific instructions. If she wants to guide him, then she needs to tell him what to do.
Yeah.
You know, like, Rand was just flying blind, trying not to kill anybody. I think she's a little out of order here.
Yeah, she was like, so this symbol and this symbol, I think, and good luck.
She's like, roll the dice, do whatever. Rand's like, thanks.
And then he did, and then she's like, what are you doing? You rolled the dice.
She's like, you're supposed to listen to me. And he's like, I did?
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know what she was banging on about here because no.
The first thing that comes out of Ingtar's mouth is, I walk in the light. This experience has changed him. If he had not made his decision to switch sides by this point, seeing all the possible lives that he lived certainly did.
Yeah.
I also think that this is the start of Matt making a turn for the better. Like, Matt's first words are that he will never betray who Rand is. Which means that Matt definitely betrayed Rand in some of his possible lives.
Yeah.
Like, he had to live through all of the ways that he screwed things up for his friend. His friend who's risking everything to get the dagger back so that Matt will not die. But facing all these possible lives, I think, is part of what starts the journey of Matt not being such a jerk.
Do you think that another reason he's so freaked out is because some of the alternate Rands punished Matt for betraying him?
Ooh.
Like, maybe Rand unleashed the power on Matt and hurt him or killed him. That would have really scared him. So he wants to avoid Rand getting mad at him in the future.
You know, I hadn't thought of that possibility.
I mean, it would make sense.
Yeah, it would,
especially if Rand was mad.
True.
Like, crazy mad.
That does make sense. Wow. Yeah, this whole flicker thing is just so screwed up.
Yeah. But I mean, this is all speculation. I mean,
Sure.
Robert Jordan didn't write any of this. I mean, we know a fraction of what Rand saw, but we have no idea what everybody else saw, you know? So I'm basically just retconning from things that happened in later books, you know?
True.
This is a weird thing. I wonder if it was motivated by Flicker.
That's true. Yeah.
I don't know. I'm really curious about what alternate lives Perrin saw.
Yeah.
Like, it sounds like he was a wolf brother in all of them. By the way, he says to Rand that they don't really have many choices, and whatever they do, some things will always be the same.
Yeah.
So, do you think that he saw some lives where he gave in and went full wolf, like we'll see Gnome does later? Because in the next book, like, it's all about Perrin's wolfy angst.
Yeah.
So it would make sense that in some of these lives, he lost himself, and that really freaks him out.
You know, I hadn't considered that before. Like, it makes sense. I mean, because one of the things I get on Perrin a lot in the next book especially is, like, just, come on, just embrace your wolf in it. Come on, just get over it. You gotta just, come on, be the superhero that we all want you to be. Come on. But you're right. Like, if he saw multiple lives where he just gave into the wolf here, that could be a really good explanation for why he resisted so much.
Yeah, and, like, again, going back to the whole retconning thing, Jordan never explains any of this, but at the beginning of The Dragon Reborn, when they're still in the mountains and they're all moody and broody and musing and emo, you know, Rand is really struggling with trying to accept himself as the dragon. Perrin's really struggling trying to accept himself as a wolfy man. And, like, I wonder how much of that struggling is related to their flicker experience. Like, it's not in the text, but, like, it's possible that...
Yeah, it's possible.
I don't know. Again, I'm just trying to make things make sense because I have future information.
And because things need to make sense. Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm really disappointed in Rand for not accepting healing from Varen.
Yeah.
Like, everyone else allowed it, and they were fine. He did not just refuse the healing either. He threw it back in her face. Maybe it's because I like Varen so much, but it was a real dick move.
Yeah, Rand's a poopy pants when it comes to Aes Sedai.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. So they lost 4 months. Now it's fall.
Oops.
Rand is hoping that Fane hasn't given up on him and scampered while he was flickering. But that was a much needed time jump for the next few chapters.
True. Very true. That's it for chapters 36 and 37 of The Great Hunt. Join us next week for chapters 38 and 39, where we get back to the girls. Remember them?
Right. We hope that you enjoyed this episode of the Wheel of Time Pod-Thru.
We'll see you again next week. Make sure that you rate and subscribe to us on iTunes or wherever you get your podcast these days. If you could leave us a positive review, it would really help us out. It makes us more visible so more people can find us. You can tweet us at Pod-Thru or email us at wattpodthru@gmail.com and tell us your thoughts on anything we covered today.
That's WOTPODTHRU@gmail.com. Thanks, everybody, and we hope the wheel weaves you in our direction again soon.